Comment note. This episode contains references to pregnancy, non-consensual supernatural situations, and body horror transformations. Nothing graphic, but wanted you to know going in. This week, you'll see how trespassing in a garden is the medieval equivalent of posting single and looking on your status. Why being kidnapped by fairies is somehow not the worst thing that can happen to a guy. And what happens when your evil stepmother's parting gift is actually way more useful than therapy. Also, if your boyfriend tells you he's about to turn into a series of increasingly disturbing animals and you need to hold on to him anyway, maybe get that in writing first. And afterward, from the scribe's bestiary, the Brownie, a helpful house spirit who will absolutely do your chores, but might burn your house down if you try to pay him. Welcome to the Drowsy Scribe. I'm your host, and tonight we're heading to the Scottish borders for one of the greatest ballads in the English-speaking world. This is Tam Lin, a story about a woman who refuses to take no for an answer, fairies who are way more threatening than the Disney version prepared you for, and a rescue that requires more guts than any dragon-slaying quest. We're working primarily from the version collected by Francis James Child. He's the guy who basically saved British ballads from obscurity in the 1800s, though this story is way older than that. Fair warning, medieval ballads don't really do subtle metaphors, so we're going to be talking pretty directly about sex and pregnancy here. Nothing gratuitous, just historically accurate. So, let's talk about Janet. Janet is the daughter of an earl, which is a pretty good gig in medieval Scotland. She's got money, status, a nice castle to live in. She's probably set to make an advantageous marriage to some lord's son, have a bunch of kids, manage an estate, the whole feudal package. But Janet has other plans. Specifically, Janet has decided she's going to go to Carterhaugh. Now, Carterhaugh is this forest near her father's lands, and it's got a reputation. There's a well there, and a garden, and roses growing everywhere, and the whole place belongs to Tam Lin. Who is Tam Lin? Great question. Nobody really knows anymore. He used to be the son of the Earl of Roxburgh, but that was years ago, and then he disappeared, and now he's just there, in the forest, which everyone knows is fairy territory. And there's a rule about Carterhaugh. If you go there and you take anything, pick a rose, drink from the well, whatever, Tam Lin will appear, and he'll demand a toll. And the toll is not money, if you know what I mean. So naturally, this is exactly where Janet decides to go. Her ladies-in-waiting are like, "Janet, maybe don't." And Janet basically says, "I appreciate your concern, but Carterhaugh is mine. It was my father's and my grandfather's, and I'll go there if I want to. Besides, I'm pulling rank here. I'm an earl's daughter. What's some forest guy going to do about it?" Which is absolutely the energy you want going into a potentially supernatural situation. Overconfidence and a property rights argument. So Janet goes to Carterhaugh. And listen, the walk there is something. She's got to go through her father's lands first, past the fields where people are working, and you can tell everyone knows where she's going. They're not saying anything, but they're looking. A couple of shepherds actually stop what they're doing to watch her pass. One old woman makes some kind of gesture that's probably meant to ward off evil, which is encouraging, but Janet keeps walking. Through the tilled fields, past the last stone wall that marks the edge of the Earl's proper lands, and then into the trees. The forest is old. That's the first thing you notice. These aren't new trees, planted in nice rows. These are oaks that were here before anyone built the castle, before anyone had a title or a deed. The path is there, but it's narrow, and the branches hang low enough that Janet has to push them aside as she walks. It's quiet in that way forests are, where you can hear every stick breaking under your feet. And then the trees open up, and there's Carterhaugh. It's beautiful. There's a clearing with grass so green it doesn't look real, and in the middle there's a well made of old stone, and around the well there's a garden that absolutely should not exist. Roses everywhere, climbing up the well, spreading across the ground, Some of them white, some of them red, all of them blooming even though it's late in the year and everything else is going brown and dormant. Janet walks right up to the garden and immediately picks a rose. A red one. Actually, depending on which version you're reading, she picks 2 roses. Because if you're going to break fairy rules, you might as well commit. The moment the stem snaps, the air changes. It gets colder. There's a sound like wind, except none of the branches are moving. And then Tam Lin is standing there. He's young, probably not much older than Janet, handsome in that annoying way where you can tell he's used to people staring at him. He's dressed well, but not quite right. His clothes are too fine, too green, like someone who's been away from normal society long enough that they've forgotten what regular people wear. And he's looking at Janet like she just walked into his house and started rearranging furniture. "Why are you in my garden?" he asks. His voice is pleasant enough, but there's an edge to it. "Why are you picking my roses without asking me?" And Janet, who apparently left all her self-preservation instincts back at the castle, lifts her chin and says, "Your garden? I think you'll find this is my garden, actually. Carterhaugh belonged to my family before you showed up. My grandfather held these lands, and my father after him, and one day they'll be mine. So I'll pick whatever roses I want, thanks." Tam Lin blinks. He was clearly expecting an apology, maybe some stammering, possibly a young maiden running away in fear. He was not expecting a property law debate. "That's not really how this works," he says. "Isn't it?" Janet's still holding the roses. "Tell me, are you paying rent? Do you have a deed? Any kind of documentation?" This is the medieval equivalent of that Spider-Man pointing meme. Tam Lin looks at her for a long moment. Then he laughs. "You're serious?" "Completely. You know what people say about this place. You know the rules." "I know people talk," Janet says. "People always talk. Doesn't mean I'm going to stay home just because some forest," she pauses, looks him up and down, "person has decided to squat in my family's land." "Squat," Tam Lin corrects. "What?" "The word is squat, not squad." "I know what I said." There's another pause. Tam Lin is still looking at her like he's trying to figure out if she's brave or stupid, or possibly both. "What's your name?" he asks finally. "Janet, daughter of the Earl of March, and you're Tam Lin." "How do you know that?" "Everyone knows that. You're the son of the Earl of Roxburgh who vanished years ago and now lives in the fairy forest and demands tolls from maidens. It's not exactly a secret." "And you came anyway?" Janet shrugs. "I wanted to see if the roses were as nice as people said." "Are they?" She looks down at the flowers in her hand. "They're all right." Tam Lin laughs again, and this time it sounds genuine. "Just all right?" "I've seen better." "You're lying." "Maybe," Janet smiles, "but you'll never know for sure, will you?" And here's where the ballad gets vague, as ballads do when they're trying to be polite about things. But the general idea is that Tam Lin and Janet keep talking. She doesn't leave. He doesn't demand his toll. Or rather, maybe he does and she doesn't refuse. Or maybe they just sit by the well and talk until the sun starts getting lower and the shadows get longer. At some point, Janet asks him, "Is it true what they say? About you?" "Depends what they say. That you're not quite human anymore, that you belong to the fairies." Tam Lin's smile fades a little. "Would it bother you if I was?" "I don't know," Janet says honestly. "I haven't decided yet." "Well, when you do decide, you know where to find me." Janet stands up, brushes off her skirt. She's still holding one of the roses. "I should get back before dark. My ladies will send a search party." "Will you come again?" Tam Lin asks. It's the first time he's sounded uncertain, and Janet likes that. Likes that she's managed to shake his composure the same way he's shaken hers. "Maybe," she says, "if I feel like it. The roses will still be here. We'll see." And then she walks back through the forest, through the fields, back to the castle. And when she gets to her room, she puts the rose in water by her window, and she doesn't tell anyone where she got it. But here's the thing, she does go back. Not the next day, she's not going to make it that easy. But a week later, she goes back to Carterhaugh, and Tam Lin is there, like he was waiting. Maybe he was. And they talk again, longer this time. He tells her about the forest, about the things that live there. She tells him about the castle, about her father's court, about how boring it is to be an earl's daughter when everyone expects you to just sit still and look pretty and marry whoever they pick for you. Is that what you're going to do? Tam Lin asks. Marry whoever they pick? Probably not, Janet says. No? I'm difficult, Janet explains. Ask anyone. I believe it. They meet a third time, a fourth. It becomes a thing, this walking to Carterhaugh. Janet's ladies know something's going on, but they don't ask. You don't ask when an earl's daughter gets that particular look on her face. And then one day, Janet goes to Carterhaugh, and this time, when she sees Tam Lin, something's different. She's different. And she thinks, oh no. Or maybe not, oh no. Maybe something else, but definitely, oh. So Janet goes home. Time passes, and after a while, people start to notice that Janet is looking a little different. It starts with the maids. They're helping her dress one morning, and one of them fumbles with the laces on her gown. Sorry, my lady, it's just... Has this shrunk? I swear it fit better last month. It's fine, Janet says quickly. Just lace it looser. But it keeps happening. Her dresses don't fit right. She's tired all the time. She throws up in the mornings, which she tries to hide. But you can't hide that kind of thing forever in a castle where privacy is basically a myth and everyone knows everyone else's business. Her ladies start whispering. The servants start whispering. And eventually, it gets back to her father. The Earl of March is, to his credit, not a tyrant. He's not a bad father, as medieval fathers go, but he is an earl, which means he cares about things like reputation and alliances and making sure his daughter doesn't cause a massive scandal that ruins her marriage prospects. So one day, he summons Janet to the hall. It's not a formal thing, it's just after dinner when most people have left, and it's just family and a few close knights. But Janet knows what it's about the second she walks in and sees her father's face. Janet, he says carefully, I need to ask you something. All right. Are you... He pauses. He's clearly hoping she'll just confess and save him from having to actually say it. Are you well? I'm fine. You've seemed tired lately. I've been sleeping badly. And your maids say your dresses need altering. Janet says nothing. One of the knights, this guy who's been hanging around the castle for months, clearly angling for some kind of favour or position, decides this is his moment to be helpful. My lord, he says, perhaps I should ask the question directly. Perhaps you shouldn't, Janet says, but he does it anyway. He looks right at Janet and asks, Are you with child? The hall goes so quiet you could hear a pin drop in the next room. Janet considers lying. She could. She could say no, say the maids are wrong, say everyone's imagining things, buy herself a few more weeks, maybe a month. But she's tired. She's tired of hiding, tired of whispering, tired of pretending. And she's Janet, which means she doesn't do anything halfway. So she says, Yes. Her father closes his eyes. One of the other knights makes a sound like he's been punched. The helpful knight looks like he just won some kind of prize. I see, her father says finally. And the father? Does it matter? Janet, of course it matters. Why? You're going to be angry either way. I'm not angry, her father says, which is a lie, but a well-intentioned one. I'm concerned. This affects your future, your standing. We need to handle this correctly. The helpful knight jumps in again. My lord, if I may, Lady Janet, if the father is unknown or if he's unwilling, I would be honoured to... No, Janet says. I haven't even finished. Don't care. No. But if you're going to have a child, you'll need a husband. And I'm offering... And I'm saying no. Janet turns to look at him properly. Thanks, but I'd rather raise a child alone than marry you. The knight's face goes red. That's... You can't just... I can, actually. I just did. Another knight stands up. This one's younger, a little less presumptuous. Lady Janet, I don't mean to overstep, but I would also be willing to marry you. I hold lands in the north, not large but sufficient, and I would claim the child as my own. No one would question it. That's very generous, Janet says. Also, no. But... Still no. Then another knight chimes in. And another. It's like they've all suddenly realised that an earl's daughter is still an earl's daughter, bastard child or not, and marrying her would still be a significant step up for most of them. Within 5 minutes, there are half a dozen offers on the table. And Janet turns them all down. Her father is gripping the arms of his chair. Janet, you have to marry someone. Why? Because you're pregnant. I'm aware. So you need a husband. Do I, though? Yes. Why? Janet asks again. You're an earl. I'm your daughter. It's not like I'm going to starve. The child will be your grandchild, your blood. Why do I need to marry some random knight just to make everyone feel better about the situation? Her father stares at her. That's not... You can't just... Can't I? Who is the father? Her father demands. Just tell me that. If he's willing to marry you, if he's someone appropriate, then... He's not someone from the castle, Janet says. Then who? Tam Lin. The hall goes quiet again, but this time it's a different kind of quiet. This time, it's the kind of quiet that happens when someone says something that's not just shocking, but frightening. Tam Lin, her father repeats slowly. From Carterhaugh. Yes. The fairy. He's not a fairy, Janet says. It's complicated. Janet, her father stands up. He looks older suddenly and worried in a way that has nothing to do with scandal or reputation. Janet, that's not... You can't have dealings with the fair folk. You don't understand what you're... I understand fine. You don't. They're dangerous. They'll take you, or trick you, or... He's not going to trick me. You don't know that. I do, actually. Her father looks at her for a long moment. Then he says, very quietly, What are you going to do? I'm going to go back to Carterhaugh, Janet says. I'm going to talk to him, and I'm going to figure this out. And if he won't help you? If he can't? Janet shrugs. Then I'll figure it out anyway. But I'm not marrying any of these men, and I'm not going to hide. So you can either help me or not, but I'm doing this. There's nothing her father can say to that, nothing any of them can say, because Janet has made up her mind, and anyone who knows her at all knows that when Janet makes up her mind, that's the end of the discussion. So the next morning, Janet goes back to Carterhaugh. This time, the walk feels different. Janet's not nervous exactly, but she's aware that this conversation is going to be more complicated than the others. This isn't just about roses and flirting and pretending the rest of the world doesn't exist. This is real. She reaches the clearing. The roses are still there, still blooming. The well is still there, the water dark and clear. And when she picks a rose, because that's apparently just how you knock on the door in fairy territory, Tam Lin appears right away. He takes one look at her, and knows something's wrong. "Janet," he says, "what happened?" "I need to talk to you." "Okay." He moves closer, and his face is concerned in a way that makes Janet's chest hurt a little. "Are you all right? Did someone hurt you?" "No, nothing like that. I'm fine. I'm just..." She takes a breath. "I'm pregnant." Tam Lin goes very still. "Yeah," Janet continues, "and everyone at home wants to know who the father is, and they're all offering to marry me, and I told them it was you. So I came to ask, what are we going to do about this?" For a long moment, Tam Lin doesn't say anything. He's just staring at her, and Janet can't read his expression. Is he angry? Scared? Trying to figure out how to vanish back into the forest and never see her again? But then he says, "I'm sorry." Janet blinks. "What?" "I'm sorry," Tam Lin says again. I didn't think. I should have been more careful." "I was there too," Janet points out. "It's not just your fault." "I know, but He runs a hand through his hair, looking more human and more lost than Janet's ever seen him. "I should have told you. Before. About what I am. About the situation." "What situation?" "Janet." Tam Lin takes her hand, very gently. "I need to tell you the truth. I'm not fully human anymore." "I'd sort of guessed that, yeah." "No, I mean..." He takes a breath. "I was human. I was the Earl of Roxburgh's son. But when I was 9 years old, I was out hunting with my grandfather. We were chasing a deer, and my horse stumbled and I fell, hit my head on a rock. I don't remember much after that, but when I woke up, I wasn't in the forest anymore. I was in a hall made of glass and gold, and the Queen of Fairies was there." "Okay," Janet says slowly. "So you're a fairy now?" "Not exactly. I'm still human, mostly. But I live with them. I've lived with them for years. The Queen took me to her realm, and she was kind at first. She healed me. She taught me things. But I'm not free, Janet. I can't leave. I serve her. I'm bound to her court."
"Can't you just leave? Walk away?"
"It doesn't work like that. The fair folk don't let people go easily. And there's something else." He hesitates. "Every 7 years, the fairies have to pay a tithe to hell." Janet stares at him.
"Sorry, what?"
"I know, but it's true. Every 7 years, they have to hand over one of their people to the devil. It's part of some ancient bargain, and the tithe is due soon. Tomorrow night is Halloween. That's when the fairy court rides out to pay it. And I think the Queen is going to choose me."
"Why you?"
"Because I was human once. I'm not really one of them, so if she has to give someone up, better me than one of her true subjects." His hand tightens on Janet's. "I'll be gone, Janet, sent to hell, and there's nothing I can do to stop it." Janet looks at him, at this man who she's somehow managed to fall for despite all common sense, who's telling her he's about to be traded to the devil in a supernatural protection racket. A sensible person would probably walk away, cut their losses. This is too much, too weird, too dangerous. But Janet's never been particularly sensible. "What if I could stop it?" she asks. Tam Lin blinks. "What?" "What if I could save you? There's got to be a way, right? Some kind of loophole?" "Janet, this is fairy magic. You can't just..." "Is there a way or not?" Tam Lin stares at her. Then, slowly, he nods. "There might be, but it's dangerous." "More dangerous than doing nothing?" "Yes," he says flatly. "Much more dangerous." Tell me anyway." So he does. Here's the plan, and it's absolutely wild. Tomorrow night, Halloween, the fairy court is going to ride out at midnight. They'll take the old road to Miles Cross. That's where the tithe gets paid. Janet needs to be there, waiting. She'll see 3 companies of riders pass by. First the black horses, then the brown, then the white. Tam Lin will be riding with the 3rd company on a white horse. "How will I know it's you?" Janet asks. "Will you all be wearing masks or something?" "Look for the rider with a glove on his right hand," Tam Lin says. "Just one glove. That'll be me." "Why just one?" "It's a mark, a sign that I was human. The Queen makes me wear it." He doesn't sound happy about it. "Okay, so I find you, and then what?" "Pull me down from the horse, grab me and pull me off." Janet raises an eyebrow. "That's it? I just yank you off a horse and you're free?" "Not exactly." Tam Lin takes a breath. "The moment you touch me, the Queen will know, and she'll try to make you let go. She'll transform me into different shapes, different creatures. You have to hold on through all of it. No matter what happens, you can't let go. If you do, I'm lost." "What kind of creatures?" "I don't know. She'll choose whatever she thinks will scare you most. Animals, probably. Maybe worse." "Worse than animals?" "The fair folk have very creative ideas about worse." Janet thinks about this. "How long will the transformations last?" "I don't know. Until she gives up, I guess. Or until you can't hold on anymore." "And if I hold on? If I make it through?" "Then I'll turn back into a man, and I'll be free, mortal again. The bond to the fairy court will be broken." He squeezes her hand. "But Janet, you have to understand, it's going to be horrible. She's not going to make it easy." "I know." "You could get hurt, badly hurt." "I know." "You could die." "I'm not going to die." "You don't know that." "I do, actually," Janet says. "Because I'm going to save you, and then we're going to go back to my father's castle, and you're going to meet your child. And none of that happens if I die. So I'm not going to." Tam Lin looks at her like he's trying to memorize her face. "You're sure about this?" "Completely." "Why?" It's a good question. Janet thinks about it. She could say something about love, or fate, or how the child deserves a father. All of that would be true. But what she says is, "Because you're mine, and I don't let people take what's mine." Tam Lin laughs, and it's a little shaky, but it's real. "That's very on brand for you." "I know." "Okay," he says. "Okay, tomorrow night then, Miles Cross, midnight." "I'll be there." "Wear gloves," Tam Lin adds. "Good ones. Leather if you have them." "Why?" He doesn't answer, but his expression says enough. Janet doesn't press. Instead, she says, "Before I was born, my stepmother gave my mother a gift. A pair of gloves, soft leather lined with silk. My mother always said they were magic, that they'd protect me when I needed them. I always thought she was just being sentimental." "Your stepmother gave them to her?" "My mother's first husband died young. She married my father after. But the first wife, his first wife, she was kind to my mother, gave her the gloves before she died, told her they were important." "That's..." Tam Lin pauses. That's not usually how stepmother stories go. I know, but I've still got the gloves. I'll wear them. Good. He pulls her closer, rests his forehead against hers. Thank you, Janet. Don't thank me yet. I haven't actually done anything. You came back, Tam Lin says quietly. That's more than most people would do. Janet doesn't say anything to that, just holds on to him for a moment longer, there in the clearing with the roses and the impossible situation. And then she goes home to prepare. Halloween night. Janet tells her ladies she's going to bed early. She pleads a headache, which isn't even a lie. She's been tense all day and her skull feels like it's being squeezed. They fuss over her, bring her wine and soft pillows, and eventually leave her alone. The moment they're gone, Janet gets up and starts getting ready. She puts on her darkest dress, the one that won't show dirt or blood. She braids her hair back tight, pins it so it won't fall in her face. And then she takes out the gloves. They're beautiful. Soft brown leather, buttery and worn from years of storage, but still strong. The silk lining is pale gold, embroidered with tiny flowers that Janet's never been able to identify. She's never worn them before. They've always felt too precious, too important. But now she pulls them on, and they fit perfectly. She looks at herself in the mirror. She looks like she's about to rob someone or commit treason, which isn't that far off, really. Interfering with a fairy tithe is probably several kinds of illegal, at least spiritually. Well, she says to her reflection, let's go get him. She slips out of the castle through the servants' entrance. It's not hard, she's done it before, sneaking out to meet Tam Lin, and she knows which guards are lazy and which hallways are empty this time of night. Within 15 minutes, she's past the walls and heading into the fields. The walk to Miles Cross is longer than the walk to Carter Hall. It's a good hour on foot, and the path isn't well marked. But Janet knows the way. It's an old road, one that was here before the castle, and there are stories about it. Of course there are. There are stories about every crossroads in Scotland. The moon is bright, almost full. That helps. Janet can see the path clearly, can see the shapes of trees and stones. It's cold, the kind of cold that comes right before winter, and her breath makes clouds in the air. She reaches Miles Cross just before midnight. It's not much to look at, just a place where two old roads meet, marked by a stone cross that's been here longer than anyone remembers. The cross is worn smooth, the details eroded by centuries of weather. There's a flat stone beside it, big enough to stand on. Janet climbs onto the stone and waits. The night is so quiet. No birds, no animals. Even the wind has stopped. It's like the whole world is holding its breath. And then, in the distance, Janet hears it. Hoofbeats. They're coming. The first company appears like something out of a dream. Riders on black horses, maybe 20 of them, moving fast. They're beautiful and terrible all at once. The horses are too perfect, too dark, their coats gleaming like oil. The riders are dressed in black, their faces pale, and they don't look at Janet as they pass. They don't look at anything. They just ride by, silent except for the sound of hooves on the old road. And then they're gone. Janet's heart is hammering. She grips the edge of the stone with her gloved hands and waits. The second company comes. Brown horses this time, just as perfect, just as wrong. More riders, maybe 30. These ones do look at her as they pass. Just quick glances, like she's something curious but not important. And then they're gone too. Janet takes a deep breath. The next group will be the one. Tam Lin will be with them. And then she hears them, the third company, riding on white horses.
They come into view and, they're beautiful.
The horses are white as snow, and they're glowing slightly, like they're made of moonlight instead of flesh. The riders are dressed in silver and white and pale green, and they look like something out of a painting. They look like everything you've ever imagined when someone says fairy. Janet scans the riders frantically. There, third row, left side, a figure on a white horse, wearing pale clothes like all the others, and on his right hand, a single brown glove. It's Tam Lin. Janet doesn't think. She jumps off the stone, runs to the road and grabs him. Her hand closes around his leg and she pulls with all her strength. For a second, nothing happens. He's too high. The horse is moving. But then Tam Lin shifts his weight, helping her, and he tumbles off the horse and into her arms. The entire procession stops. Janet stumbles back, holding Tam Lin. He's heavy, solid, human. He looks at her with wide eyes and says, "You came." "Of course I came. I said I..." And then he starts changing. The first transformation is the worst because Janet isn't ready for it. 1 second, she's holding a man. The next second, her arms are full of something cold and squirming and very much not human. It's a newt. Slimy, smooth, twisting in her grip. It's small, maybe the length of her forearm, but it's strong and it's trying to wriggle free. Janet can feel it sliding against the leather of her gloves, feel it coiling and thrashing. Every instinct in her body is screaming at her to drop it. She doesn't. She holds on, gripping it tight, and the newt writhes in her hands. It's cold, so cold, like she's holding something that's been at the bottom of a well for years. Its skin is slick and wet, and she can feel its tiny feet scrabbling against her wrists, trying to find purchase so it can push away. "Hold fast," Janet whispers to herself. "Hold fast." The newt twists violently, and for a second, Janet almost loses it. It's halfway out of her grip, sliding toward freedom. But she adjusts, tightens her hold, pins it against her chest. And then it changes again. Now it's a snake, longer, thicker, much stronger. It coils around her arms immediately, and Janet gasps as it starts to constrict. It's not trying to kill her, or maybe it is, she doesn't know, but it's crushing her arms, wrapping around her wrists and squeezing. It's cold like the newt was, but worse. This cold feels deliberate, malicious. The snake's scales are smooth and hard, and as it winds around her, she can feel the muscles moving underneath. It's pure strength, pure coiled power. Janet grits her teeth and holds on. The snake wraps around her forearms, then her elbows. It's getting longer, she thinks, or maybe there's just more of it somehow. Its head rears up near her face, tongue flicking out, and Janet forces herself not to flinch. She stares at it, at the flat black eyes that don't look like Tam Lin at all. "I'm not letting go," she tells it. "You can't make me." The snake hisses and constricts tighter. Janet's arms are going numb. She can't feel her fingers anymore, but she doesn't let go. And then the snake changes too. Suddenly, Janet is holding a bear. A full-grown bear, massive and roaring and absolutely furious. It's too big. There's no way she should be able to hold on to it. It's got to weigh 3 times what she does. But somehow, she is. Her arms are wrapped around its neck, and she's clinging on as it rears up and bellows. The bear's fur is coarse and thick, and underneath it, she can feel the heat of its body. After the cold of the newt and the snake, the warmth is almost shocking, but there's no comfort in it. This is the heat of rage, of a wild animal that wants to tear her apart. The bear shakes itself, trying to dislodge her. Janet's feet leave the ground. She's dangling from its neck now, holding on with everything she has, and her shoulders are screaming. The muscles in her arms feel like they're tearing, but she doesn't let go. The bear drops back to all fours and starts spinning, shaking its whole body like a dog trying to dry off. Janet's head snaps back and forth. She can't see straight. She's going to throw up, or pass out, or both. "Hold fast," she gasps. "Hold fast, hold fast, hold fast." And then the bear roars one more time and changes. Now it's a lion, smaller than the bear, but worse, so much worse. Because the lion isn't just trying to shake her off. The lion is trying to kill her. It twists in her grip, and suddenly there are claws raking across her arms. Even through the gloves, through the sleeves of her dress, Janet can feel them. The lion is snarling, snapping, and its teeth are inches from her face. She can smell its breath, hot and rank and carnivorous. One of its paws catches her shoulder, and the claws dig in. Janet cries out. She can feel blood, hot and wet, soaking into her dress. But she doesn't let go. She buries her face in the lion's mane, holds on as tight as she can, and waits for it to pass. The lion thrashes and roars and claws at her, and Janet just endures it. There's nothing else she can do. She can't fight it. She can't reason with it. She can only hold on and hope. The lion bucks one more time, throwing its head back, and Janet feels something in her shoulder give way with a white-hot spike of pain. And then the lion changes again. This is the part where it gets truly horrible. Janet is suddenly holding a bar of red-hot iron. The pain is immediate and absolute. Even through the gloves, even through the magic silk lining, she can feel it. The metal is glowing, radiating heat like a forge, and it's burning her. She can smell her own skin cooking. The leather of the gloves is starting to smoke. Janet screams. She can't help it. This isn't like the claws or the cold or the crushing. This is pain on a level she's never felt before. Every nerve in her hands is on fire. Her palms are burning. Her fingers are burning. The heat is spreading up her arms, and she can feel blisters forming, popping, forming again. The iron writhes in her grip like it's alive, like it's trying to burn its way out of her hands. And every single instinct in Janet's body is telling her to drop it. Drop it now, before the damage is permanent, before she loses her hands entirely. Just let go. It's not worth this. Nothing is worth this. But she doesn't. Through the pain, through the screaming agony, Janet holds on. Her gloves are smoking. She's crying, tears streaming down her face, and she's making sounds she didn't know she could make. But her grip doesn't loosen. "I'm not," she gasps. "I'm not letting go. I'm not." The iron burns hotter, bright red turning to orange, orange turning to white. Janet can't see anymore, can't think. There's only pain and heat and the feeling of her hands being destroyed. But she holds on. And then the iron changes one last time. It's a coal now, a burning coal, white hot and crumbling. It's falling apart in her hands, but somehow it's still solid, still there. Pieces of it are flaking off, and everywhere they touch her, they burn. Her dress is catching fire, her hair is singed. This is it, Janet thinks dimly. This is the one that will make her drop him. Because you can't hold on to burning coal. You just can't. It's physically impossible. Except Janet is doing it anyway. She's bent over, curled around the coal, protecting it with her body even as it burns her. Her hands are ruined, she knows that, can feel it even through the pain. But she's still holding on, still keeping her grip. "Please," she whispers. She doesn't know if she's talking to Tam Lin, or the Fairy Queen, or God, or just herself. "Please, please, please." The coal burns brighter, hotter, and then, suddenly, it doesn't. The heat disappears. The weight in her arms changes. Janet collapses to the ground, and she's holding a man. A human man. naked, gasping, covered in sweat, but human, completely, fully, absolutely human. It's Tam Lin. He's free. Janet can't speak, can't move. Her hands are still locked in position, still gripping him because she doesn't know how to let go. She doesn't remember how to unclench her fingers. Tam Lin is breathing hard, staring at her. "Janet," he says. His voice is hoarse. "Janet, you can let go now. It's over." She tries. She can't. "It's okay," Tam Lin says. He reaches up carefully, gently pries her fingers open one by one. "It's okay. You did it. I'm here." Janet's hands drop to her sides. She looks down at them and immediately wishes she hadn't. The gloves are destroyed. The leather is charred black, cracked and peeling. And underneath, her hands are... they're bad. The skin is red and blistered, some places white, some places already turning black. She can see raw flesh where the worst burns are. She should probably be screaming or passing out, but she's too tired for either of those things. Instead, she looks back at Tam Lin and says, "Did it work?" He laughs. It's a broken, exhausted sound, but it's real. "Yeah, it worked." "Good." And then Janet passes out. She wakes up seconds later, or maybe minutes, she's not sure, to the sound of a voice that isn't Tam Lin's.
"If I had known," the voice says, cold and sharp and furious, "that a mortal woman would take you from me, I would have ripped out your eyes and replaced them with wood. I would have taken your heart and given you stone instead." Janet blinks. Her vision is blurry, but she can make out shapes. There's a figure on horseback, pale and beautiful and radiating fury. The Fairy Queen. She's staring down at Tam Lin with an expression that makes Janet deeply aware that they could both still die here. "You were mine," the Queen says. "Mine for 7 years, and you threw it away for this mortal girl." Tam Lin doesn't answer. He's kneeling next to Janet, and he's put himself between her and the Queen. It's not going to help if the Queen decides to kill them, but it's something. "She held on," Tam Lin says finally. "She won. She cheated. There's no rule against what she did. You know that." The Queen's expression could freeze fire. "I should kill you both." "But you won't," Tam Lin says. It's not quite a question. For a long moment, the Queen doesn't say anything. Then she turns her horse around, and the rest of the fairy court turns with her. "Keep your mortal life," she says without looking back. "I hope it brings you more joy than my service did." It doesn't sound like she means it. And then they're gone. The horses, the riders, the unearthly glow. All of it disappears like it was never there. The road is empty. It's just Janet and Tam Lin, alone at the crossroads in the dark. Janet tries to sit up and immediately regrets it. Everything hurts. Everything. "Easy," Tam Lin says. He's still naked, she realizes, which would be funny if she had the energy to laugh. "Don't move. Let me see your hands." "They're fine," Janet lies. "They're not fine. They're..." He stops, swallows. "You held on to burning metal for me." "Yeah." "Your hands are destroyed." "They'll heal." "Janet." "I said they'll heal." She looks at him properly. "You're mortal again?" "I think so. I feel... yeah, I'm mortal." He touches his chest like he's checking for something. "I can feel my heartbeat. It's fast. I haven't felt that in years." "Good." "Janet, your hands." "Will heal," she says again. "With time, and probably some very good healers. But I don't regret it, if that's what you're worried about." Tam Lin stares at her. Then he leans down and kisses her forehead very gently. "You're insane." "I know." "Thank you." "You're welcome." Janet manages a smile. "Now can we go home?"
I'm freezing, you're naked, and I think I'm going to need someone to carry me because I don't think my legs work anymore. Tam Lin laughs, and it sounds like freedom. They do make it home eventually. Tam Lin carries Janet most of the way, wrapped in his cloak that he borrowed from a very confused shepherd they passed. By the time they reach the castle, the sun is coming up and the servants are starting their morning routines. The looks on everyone's faces when Janet's father opens the door to find his daughter being carried by a naked stranger are absolutely priceless. But that's a different story. So that's Tam Lin. It's a ballad that's been sung in Scotland for at least 400 years, probably longer. Francis James Child collected the most complete version in the 1860s, but there are dozens of variants. Some versions give Janet a different name, Margaret, or just the Lady. Some versions make Tam Lin's backstory different, but the core is always the same. A woman saves her lover from the fairies through sheer physical courage and determination. And that's what makes this story different from a lot of fairy tales. Janet isn't waiting to be rescued. She's not locked in a tower or asleep under a curse. She walks into a fairy forest, has a relationship on her own terms, and when things go sideways, she's the one who does the rescuing. She's the knight. Tam Lin is the one who needs saving. It's a reversal that shouldn't feel revolutionary, but somehow still does. Also, it's one of the very few medieval stories where the woman who has sex outside of marriage doesn't die, get punished, or learn a harsh lesson about morality. Janet gets her happy ending. She gets her guy, her autonomy, and presumably some very good gloves for those burned hands. Not bad for a night's work. And now, from the Scribe's Bestiary, the Brownie. So you've heard of fairies, you've probably heard of elves, but have you heard of brownies? And no, I'm not talking about the chocolate dessert or the junior Girl Scouts, though honestly, both of those are probably named after this guy. The Brownie is a household spirit from Scottish and Northern English folklore. He's small, maybe 3 feet tall, and he's usually described as brown and shaggy, like someone crossed a tiny man with a sheepdog. No fancy clothes, usually naked or wearing rags. He shows up at your house uninvited, moves into your barn or attic, and then does your chores. Seriously, the Brownie will clean your kitchen, thresh your grain, churn your butter, tend your animals. He works at night while you're sleeping, and by morning, everything is done. It's like having a very efficient, very hairy roommate who never asks for rent. The only catch? You can never pay him. I mean it. If you leave out clothes for a Brownie, he'll get offended and leave. If you try to give him money, he'll leave. If you even thank him too directly, he might leave. The only thing you're allowed to do is leave out a bowl of milk or cream, and maybe some bread. That's not payment, see? That's just hospitality. Totally different. Except if you get the milk wrong, if it's too little or too warm or the wrong kind, the Brownie will sometimes turn into a boggart, which is basically an angry Brownie who breaks things instead of fixing them. Your milk goes sour, your crops fail, your cows stop producing. It's like having a terrible roommate who blasts music at 3 a.m. and leaves passive-aggressive notes on the fridge, except the notes are written in spoiled butter. There's a famous story from Perthshire about a Brownie who lived at Cranshaw's castle. He was great, worked hard, never complained, loved his milk. But then one day, one of the servants decided to be nice and left out a brand new shirt for him. Just trying to be thoughtful, you know. The Brownie should have something to wear. The Brownie found the shirt, put it on, and immediately said, "A new shirt and a new hood. Cranshaw's Brownie will do no more good." And he left, just like that. Decades of free labour gone because someone tried to give him a shirt. The lesson here is that Brownies are extremely helpful, but also incredibly touchy about the nature of your relationship. They're not your servants. They're not your employees. They're something else, something older, something that exists in the space between gift and obligation. You can't control them. You can only hope they like you enough to stay. And honestly, that's probably the healthiest relationship dynamic in this entire episode. Thanks for listening to the Drowsy Scribe. If you've got a favourite fairy tale, myth, or folklore creature you'd like to hear about, let me know. I'm always looking for good stories, especially ones where someone holds on to a burning coal and doesn't let go. Remember, if you ever find yourself at a crossroads on Halloween, maybe just stay home. But if you do go and you see someone with one glove, hold fast. The Drowsy Scribe, signing off.